Everybody want to shine, but nobody want to grind. Everybody talking about loyalty, success, discipline, but the moment it gets quiet, the moment it's just you and your thoughts, they fold, they look left, they look right. But the truth is, you're not losing because they're better, you're losing because you're distracted. Focus only on you and stay silent. Focus is your superpower. In a world overflowing with distractions, it's the rarest currency. Everyone wants to win, but few are truly willing to lock in and focus. We scroll, we compare, we listen to 1,000 voices that aren't our own, and then we wonder why our dreams feel so far away. But the truth is, most people aren't losing because they're not talented. Most people aren't falling short because they don't have potential. They're losing because they're distracted. Think about this. Every time you pick up your phone to check someone else's highlight reel, you're taking your eyes off your own mission. Every time you gossip, complain, or try to prove yourself to someone who doesn't even matter, you're burning fuel that should have gone into your grind. And the most dangerous part, you start living for applause, not for purpose. You start chasing validation instead of chasing growth. You don't get stronger looking at someone else lift weights. You get stronger when you put your own reps in. But if your eyes are always on a bar, your form breaks. You miss your rhythm. And eventually you drop your own progress trying to carry someone else's image. That's why you have to stop watching others. Cut the noise. Unfollow the unnecessary. Mute the drama and lock in, because focus isn't just about attention. It's about intention. It's about saying, this is where I'm going. This is what I need to do. And this is what I refuse to give my energy to anymore. It's a mindset, a discipline, a commitment to your future self that says, I will not be moved by what's trending, what's popular, or what they're doing. I'm building me. People talk about motivation like it's magic, but motivation without focus is just hype. It'll get you excited for 15 minutes and leave you drained by lunchtime. Focus is what keeps the fire burning when the applause fades. When nobody's texting you back. When the results are slow. When it feels like you're working for nothing. That's when focus becomes the anchor. That's when it becomes your weapon. Let me tell you something real. Distraction is the enemy dressed in 1,000 costumes. Sometimes it looks like entertainment. Sometimes it looks like opportunity. Sometimes it even shows up as people who say they care, but really they're just pulling you off your path. Not everyone who claps for you wants you to win. Some people just want a front row seat to your downfall. That's why focus also means discernment, knowing what to cut off, who to distance, what to delay, so you can protect your energy, protect your purpose, and protect your peace. And listen, it's not always going to feel good. Focus comes with isolation. It comes with silence. It comes with sacrifice. While everybody else is out partying, showing off, doing the most for the gram, you in the gym, you're studying, you're learning, you're building, brick by brick, day by day. And they might laugh now. They might ignore you, doubt you, even count you out. But focus always wins in the long run, because while they're reacting to every trend, you're sticking to your strategy. While they're chasing clout, you're chasing character. While they're focused on being seen, you're focused on being prepared. And when the lights finally come on, when it's your time, they'll think it happened overnight. But you'll know it was every early morning, every late night, every quiet, focused hour that brought you there. So if you're tired of being stuck, tired of feeling behind, tired of wondering when it's your turn, it starts here. Not with more information, not with another motivational video. It starts with focus. Real, ruthless, unbreakable focus. Not on them, not on what's missing, but on you. On what you said you'd do. On who you said you'd become. And on the silent promise you made to yourself when no one else believed in you. Keep that promise. Stay locked in. Stay focused. Everything else can wait. Grind in silence. That's the rule that separates the ones who talk about success from the ones who actually live it. In a world obsessed with showing off every move, every meal, every moment of effort, the real ones, the ones who build legacies, understand that true growth doesn't need a spotlight. It needs discipline. It needs consistency. And most of all, it needs silence. See, we've all been conditioned to think visibility equals progress. If they don't see it, it doesn't count. If it's not on social media, did it even happen? But that's a trap, a dangerous trap. Because when your grind becomes a performance, your purpose starts to rot. You stop working for the outcome and you start working for applause. But here's the truth. Applause is temporary. The spotlight is fleeting. And when the claps stop, most people stop too. That's why you need to learn to grind when nobody's watching. Put in the reps when no one's cheering. Study the craft, master the skills, and push through the doubt in silence. Because it's in the silence that the strongest foundations are laid. Nobody builds a skyscraper from the top. The first thing they do is dig a hole, go deep, pour concrete, lay steel. And all of that happens underground, unseen, unnoticed. But when the time is right and the structure rises, it doesn't just stand, it dominates. Your grind has to be the same way, underground, quiet, unshakable. You can't get distracted by who's ahead or who's watching. Lions don't chase approval. They chase results. When they hunt, they move in silence. No hype, no announcement, just precise focus, quiet action, and dominant results. That's how you have to move. Most people will never get what they want because they're addicted to being seen. They want credit before the work is even done. They want to be called a boss before they've earned leadership. They want the reward without the process. But when you grind in silence, you learn to fall in love with the process. You learn to show up regardless, not because people are watching, but because you made a promise to yourself. And breaking that promise is not an option. When you grind in silence, something powerful happens. You become mentally bulletproof. You stop depending on external motivation and you start operating on internal standards. You don't need likes. You don't need validation. You just need purpose. You just need progress. And the best part, when the results finally come, they hit different because nobody saw it coming. You didn't talk about it. You didn't hype it. You just delivered. Let people sleep on you. Let them think you're average. Let them underestimate you. Because while they're watching each other, you're working. While they're distracted, you're developing. While they're posting, you're preparing. And one day, one moment, you're gonna rise and they'll be confused. They'll say, where'd you come from? But you know, you didn't just show up, you built up quietly. And here's the deeper truth. The silence is where you grow, not just your craft, but your character. It teaches patience. It builds resilience. It develops maturity. When you don't have an audience clapping every step, you learn how to validate yourself. You learn how to keep going when it's hard, when it's boring, when it feels pointless. That's how champions are made. Not when it's exciting, but when it's repetitive, when it's lonely, when it's thankless. So don't waste time proving yourself. Don't burn energy trying to impress people who aren't even paying attention. Let them sleep, let them doubt, and let your results wake them up. Because the goal is not to be seen. The goal is to be undeniable. Not loud, just legendary. So stay quiet, stay hungry, stay focused, and keep grinding like the whole world is watching, even when no one is. Because in the end, it won't be your words that people remember. It'll be the legacy you built in silence. You are not in competition with them. You are in competition with you. The sooner you understand that, the sooner your life starts to change. Too many people spend their energy trying to outrun someone else's pace, trying to match someone else's level, trying to copy someone else's formula. But your greatest growth will never come from comparison. It will only come from correction. Yes, every day you wake up and you're given two choices. Repeat the cycle or break it. And that decision doesn't depend on anyone else. It's not about what they did to you, what they posted, how fast they're moving, or how loud their success is. It's about the person in the mirror. Are you better than the version of you from yesterday? Are you keeping the promises you made to yourself when no one was watching? That's the battle. That's the race. Too many people think they're in a war with the world, but really they're just running from themselves. They're dodging their own discipline. They're avoiding the uncomfortable truth. It's not the competition that's holding them back. It's them. Their own habits, their own choices, their own mindset, that's the real enemy. And it's the only one that matters. You don't need to beat anyone else. You need to beat the old you. You need to outwork the version of yourself that was lazy, unfocused, insecure, or afraid. Every single day you have an opportunity to upgrade who you are, to sharpen your skills, strengthen your mindset, raise your standards. But that takes courage. It takes honesty. It takes looking in the mirror and saying, that's not enough. I can do better. And then actually doing it. It's easy to point the finger at other people, to blame circumstances, to say they had more support or they got lucky. But none of that moves you forward. What moves you forward is accountability. What moves you forward is discipline. The daily decision to not settle, not shrink, and not stay the same. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you're not evolving, you're staying stuck in cycles you were meant to break. Competing with others makes you reactive. It puts your emotions in their hands. If they win, you feel like you're losing. If they move fast, you panic and sprint without purpose. But when you compete with you become proactive. You create your own standard. You move with strategy, not emotion. You don't rush the process, you respect it. You're not controlled by their success because you're driven by your own goals. Understand this, nobody else is living your life. Nobody else is running your race. They don't carry your pain. They don't have your purpose. So why would you measure your progress by their path? That's like planting a tree and getting mad that it's not blooming like the one across the street. Different soil, different season, different mission. Focus on your roots. Water your soil. Nurture your growth. And be patient with your process. And no, it's not always going to feel like progress. Some days you'll feel stuck. Some days you'll feel like nothing's changing. But that's part of the growth. That's part of becoming the person you're meant to be. Because when you compete with yourself, you learn to appreciate small wins. You learn to measure growth in inches, not just miles. And that mindset, that's how you build momentum. That's how you stay in the game long after others burn out. This isn't about ego. It's not about proving you're better than someone else. It's about proving you're more disciplined than the old you. It's about rising above the excuses that used to run your life. It's about choosing excellence over comfort, growth over fear, purpose over popularity. So forget who's watching, forget who's ahead, forget what they're doing, because they're not your enemy and they're not your standard. You are. You always have been. Look in the mirror and say, today, I'm coming for you, the weaker version of me, the undisciplined me, the fearful me, the comfortable me. That's who I'm taking down. That's who I'm leaving behind. Because when you start competing with the only person who really matters, you win every single time. Stop explaining yourself. Stop announcing your plans. Stop trying to convince people that you're serious this time. The truth is, the more you talk, the more you leak energy. The more you try to justify your path to people who don't understand your vision, the more you give away your power. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your grind, your silence, or your progress. You don't need to post every step. You don't need to prove every move, because results speak louder than words, and your work is your voice. We live in a culture that pressures us to broadcast everything. If you don't show it, it's like it didn't happen. If you don't tell people what you're doing, it's like you're doing nothing. But that mindset is a trap. It pulls you into performance instead of purpose. You become more concerned about being seen working than actually working. And that's how you lose momentum. That's how you drift off course. Think about it. How many times have you told people what you were going to do only to lose steam a few days later? Why? Because you got your validation up front. You talked about the goal, people clapped, they praised you, and your brain felt like it had already achieved something. You got the dopamine hit without doing the work. But you don't grow from intentions, you grow from execution. The world doesn't respond to your ideas, it responds to your output. That's why you need to move in silence. Not because you're hiding, not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. Focused people don't waste time trying to explain their decisions. They don't need applause to validate their direction. They trust the process, they trust themselves, and they trust the work. They understand that elevation requires separation. And sometimes that separation means pulling away from the noise, from the pressure to constantly share and just lock in. You don't have to keep defending why you're cutting people off, why you're not going out, why you're spending time alone, or why you're so obsessed with your goals. People who get it don't need an explanation. People who don't get it still won't understand no matter how many times you explain. So stop explaining, let them assume, let them misunderstand, let them talk. Because while they're talking, you're building. While they're guessing, you're grinding. And when the results show up, the noise fades. Results don't lie. Results don't need hashtags. Results don't need permission. When you walk into a room and your work speaks for itself, you don't have to say, oh, that's real power, that's real impact. Because now you're not operating off emotion, you're operating off evidence. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you free up that energy for the work. And the work is the only thing that matters. Not their opinions, not their approval, just the mission, just the grind. And eventually that grind becomes undeniable, not because you shouted it from the rooftops, but because you became it. The people who are really about it, who are truly committed to mastery, to growth, to purpose, they're not loud, they're disciplined, they're focused, they're patient. Because they know that everything good takes time. They know that real success comes in silence and reveals itself in results. You don't have to announce that you've changed, just change. You don't have to prove that you're growing, just grow. Let your actions document your evolution. Let your work tell your story. Let your discipline be louder than your declarations. Because in the end, nobody remembers what you said you would do. They only remember what you actually did. So if you're serious about leveling up, here's the rule. Do more, say less. Show more through your execution and say less through your ego. You don't need the world to see every step. Just let them see the finish line. Let them be shocked by the results they never saw coming. Because when your work speaks loud enough, your silence becomes your strength. Silence is not weakness, it's power. Most people don't understand that. They think if you're quiet, you're unsure. If you're not always posting, always talking, always showing up loud, then maybe you're not doing anything. But the truth is, the deepest growth, the most powerful transformation, and the real breakthroughs happen in the silence. That's where discipline is born. That's where character is built. That's where legends are made. Everybody wants the spotlight, but nobody wants the solitude. They want the outcome, but not the isolation. They want the success, but not the stillness. But if you really want to rise, if you really want to become something rare, something unstoppable, you have to learn to embrace the silence. You have to get comfortable with being unseen, unnoticed, and even misunderstood while you put in the work. Because the work done in silence is the work that lasts. When it's lonely, when nobody's clapping, when nobody's watching, that's when your discipline gets tested. That's when it gets real. It's easy to grind when people are hyping you up. It's easy to show up when everyone's cheering. But what about when there's no applause, no validation, no visible progress? Can you still show up then? Can you still be consistent when everything in you wants to quit? That's the question. That's the moment that separates the real from the fake. Most people fold into silence. They let doubt creep in. They think maybe it's not working just because nobody sees it yet. But the truth is, the silence is where your roots grow. It's where you build the habits, the mindset, the mental toughness to carry the weight of your future success. Because let's be clear, success is heavy And if you're not strong enough on the inside, it will crush you the moment you get it. That's why the silence is necessary. It's training you, preparing you, strengthening you. You can't skip the silent seasons. You can't avoid the lonely grind. That's where the real work happens. That's where you develop your identity. Not the identity that the world gives you, but the one you choose, the one you earn, the one you carve out with effort, focus, and sacrifice. And that identity can't be built in the noise. It has to be built in the quiet, when it's just you and the work. People will doubt you during this time. They won't understand your silence. They'll say you fell off. They'll say you're not doing anything. Let them talk. Let them assume. Because when you emerge from that silence, when the work finally starts to show, they won't know what hit them. And the best part, you won't have to explain a thing. Your results will speak for you. Your transformation will speak for you. Your new reality will be the loudest statement you ever made. But it all starts with how you handle the silence. Can you stay focused when nobody's watching? Can you remain disciplined when it's hard, when it's boring, when it feels like nothing's happening? Can you stay committed when the results are invisible, when progress feels slow, when doubt is louder than belief? If you can, then you're dangerous, because now you're no longer fueled by external praise. You're driven by internal purpose. And that kind of drive, that kind of inner fire, it doesn't fade when the claps stop. It doesn't die out when you're alone. It burns steady. It burns through the silence. It burns through every setback, every delay, every obstacle. Because it's not about being seen, it's about becoming. Becoming a version of you that doesn't just want it, but is willing to pay the full price for it, even if that price is silence. So embrace it. Don't fear the quiet seasons. Don't run from the stillness. That's where you sharpen your sword. That's where you build your edge. And when the time comes, when the lights finally come on and the moment is yours, you'll be ready. Not because you talked about it, but because you stayed disciplined in the dark. Silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening and you're too focused to be loud about it. Keep building. Keep working. Keep growing. And let your silence do the talking. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. That pressure you feel, the weight of people's opinions, the need to impress, the urge to be accepted, it's all noise. And the more you chase validation, the further you drift from your purpose. You weren't built to please everybody. You weren't created to fit into their boxes, to play by their rules, or to match their expectations. You were built for something deeper, something higher. But to rise into that version of yourself, you got to let go of the need to prove. That need to prove yourself is a distraction. It pulls your focus away from the work and puts it on perception. You stop moving with intention and start moving with insecurity. You start shaping your life based on what you think they'll approve of, not based on what you know you're called to do. And that's how people end up miserable, living someone else's version of success. Smiling on the outside, but empty on the inside. Because they were too busy trying to be accepted instead of being authentic. But when you stop trying to prove yourself, you get your power back. You stop performing and start progressing. You stop reacting to opinions and start responding to your own goals. You realize you don't need to convince anyone of your value. You just need to own it. Quietly, confidently, consistently. Because true confidence doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be real. Think about this. The people you're trying to impress are often not even paying attention. Or worse, they're projecting their own insecurities onto you. They tell you what's realistic, not because they know your limits, but because they've already accepted theirs. And if you're not careful, their fear becomes your ceiling. Their doubt becomes your mindset. Their judgment becomes your prison. But you don't owe them your potential. You don't owe them your dreams. You don't need to explain why you're moving different. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need applause to start. The only person you owe is you. The version of you that had the courage to dream big. The version of you that started when nobody else believed. The version of you that's been through the fire, the failure, and the silence, and still keeps going. You prove yourself every time you show up. Every time you choose discipline over distraction. Every time you stay focused when others drift. Every time you stay true to your path, even when it's not popular. That's proof. Not the talking, not the flexing, not the seeking of approval, just the work, just the results, just the consistency. And here's what's powerful. When you stop trying to prove yourself, people start to notice. Not because you're demanding attention, but because you become undeniable. There's a gravity to someone who moves with purpose, a strength in someone who doesn't need external validation. That kind of person changes the room just by walking into it. They don't speak to be heard. They live to be felt. This is the mindset you need if you're going to make it long term, because there will always be critics, always be doubters, always be people who don't understand your grind. And if you let that noise control you, you'll never fully step into your greatness. You'll stay stuck in cycles of proving instead of evolving. But when you release that pressure, when you stop chasing validation and start chasing excellence, you unlock something different. You move differently. You think differently. You believe differently. So stop waiting for the world to see you. Start seeing yourself. Stop needing others to get it. Start getting it for yourself. Your worth isn't up for debate. Your vision doesn't need a vote. And your mission doesn't need a marketing plan. It just needs a committed version of you who doesn't flinch when misunderstood and doesn't fold under pressure. You've got nothing to prove. You've only got work to do. Focus on the mission. Focus on the process and let your results do the talking. Let your peace confuse them. Let your consistency shock them. Let your growth speak for you. Because in the end, it's not about proving you're great. It's about becoming great and doing it so quietly, so powerfully that they can't ignore you even if they try.